right, so we were doing law of sines.
This is not a homework.
Remember when I gave it to you last week, it was A over sine of angle A equals B over sine of angle B equals C over sine of angle C. And we would pick two of those ratios at a time and set them up to solve in each triangle. Those did not require a right triangle. But all the problems that I gave you on Thursday had something in common. In all of those, I gave you two of the three angles in the triangle. And you had to find the one missing angle and the two missing sides. So I'm going to flip it today. I'm going to give you one angle and two sides. And you have to find everything else from that. So if you follow along in your book, which I'm sure that's what you guys do, is you go home and look it up and read the book to make sure I didn't lie to you, as you should, good students like that. They give you a whole table of rules, because what's going to happen is if I only give you one of the one angle to start with, there might be one triangle that works, there might be two triangles that work, or there might be no solution. And so if you're following in the book, they give you all these scenarios, and you're supposed to look at those scenarios and decide if it's going to work or not. And I think that's just annoying to try to memorize a bunch of rules. So what we're going to do is just solve the problem and see, did I get one answer, do I get two answers, or do I get no answers? Okay. In order to do that, we're just going to keep in mind a couple things. Sine should always be between 0 and 1. I mean, technically it could be negative, but if we're talking about in a triangle with sides positive, our value of sine should be between 0 and 1. So if I'm solving and I get sine of angle A equals 3, what do you think that means? No solution, because can sine be 3? Absolutely not. So that's the case when there's no triangles. If you're solving and you get sine to be something bigger than 1. A quick check that I use a lot, and I think I mentioned this in the last section, when you set this up, your smallest angle is always across from the shortest side. The biggest angle is always across from the biggest side. So if you solve a triangle and you have the smallest angle across from the biggest side, you know that there's something wrong there. That's a big red flag. And we also know that in a triangle, all the angles should add up to 180 degrees. So instead of memorizing a bunch of facts, we are just going to use the things we already know to determine if the problem works or not. So it's going to start out largely the same as the previous problems. I'm going to give you some information and say solve the triangle. That means find everything I didn't already tell you. You are welcome to draw a triangle with these. I usually just do a very generic triangle. I don't even attempt to make anything to scale. If you don't need a picture, you're not required to draw one. So that part is completely optional. So I have triangle ABC. So side A should be across from angle A. That was 17.9. Side C is 13.2. Angle C is 75 degrees, 30 minutes. So if I were going to set this up, our law of sines, we know we take any two at a time. I would have to start in a very specific place. I have both the angle and side for C, so I would have to use that. What would I have to find first here? Yeah, I have no information about D. I don't know the angle or side, so we have to start with A. So then we plug in what we know. So side C is 13.2 divided by the sine of 75 degrees, 30 minutes, equals side A, 17.9, divided by the sine of angle A. All right, what would we do here to solve this? I'd probably just go ahead and cross multiply. I'm going to get sine by itself, I have to divide by 13.2. So I have sine A equals, and then I'm just going to plug this in. 17.9. Make sure you're in degree mode before you go too far with this. 17.9 sine of 75 plus 30 over 60. All right. So I get sine A equals 1.3129. Do you guys see a problem yet? We will need to get the angle, we would do degrees and minutes. We know the smallest angle will have to be across from the smallest side. So at this point, how do you get the angle? If you're trying to move the sine to the other side, what do we do? How do we type this in the calculator when we're looking for an angle? The inverse. What happens if you do sine inverse? So second sine 1.3129. You get an error. Why? Can sine be bigger than 1? No. And even if you didn't catch it right there, you sure caught it when you plugged it in your calculator and it says error. So what does this tell me? No solution. There's no triangle here. We can't make a triangle with that given information. And that'll be how it comes every time when there's no solution. You'll get to this point and you'll have sine equals something bigger than 1. And that's when there is no triangle. Let's do another one. So we're solving triangle ABC. Angle A, 61.4 degrees. Side A is 35.5 centimeters. Side B is 39.2 centimeters. So what are we going to find first? Angle B. We can do A over sine A equals B over sine B. Plug in our values and cross multiply. So to get sine by itself, you have to divide. And you get sine of B to equal 0.96949. So is this one possible? Yes. Now, I told you sometimes you might get two answers. Here's why. When is sine positive? Quadrants 1 and 2. Alright, reference angle. So that's when you do sine inverse. You get 75.8 degrees. So we have to look at two separate triangles. In triangle 1, if we're in quadrant 1, then angle B is in quadrant 1, and we know in quadrant 1 your reference angle is the angle. If I were in quadrant 2, how would I get my angle? So 180 minus 75.8. What other information could I find now? Right. And we have two separate cases. We have two separate triangles. So, in the first triangle, you do 180 minus the two angles you know, 61.4 and 75.8. So in that triangle, angle C is 42.8. In the second triangle, so 180 minus 61.4 minus 104.2, we get 14.4 degrees. All of this still possible? Yeah, we haven't gotten any negative angles or anything, so this is looking good. What other information do we have to find in our triangle? Side C. Now, we are going to have two different values depending on which of these two triangles we're in. So for my first triangle, if I wanted to use side C, I'm going to do it with A over sine A equals C over sine C, since A was in that information given. So we would have 35.5 divided by the sine, angle A was 61.4, equals C over the sine of 42.8 degrees. So then how do you find C? Multiply it over and put it in our calculator. And we get, in that triangle, 27.5. But we also need side C in the second triangle. So the exact same setup. Side A was 35.5 divided by the sine of 61.4 equals side C divided by the sine, but this time angle C was 14.4 degrees. Is everyone okay with how I got this? Quick check, just to verify. So my biggest angle in the first triangle looks like angle B, and looking side B is the biggest side. Smallest angle in the first triangle was C, and side C was the smallest side, so that's all good. Same thing over here. Angle B is the biggest, side B is the biggest. Angle C is the smallest, side C is the smallest. So that's just kind of a quick check. If something doesn't work, you'll probably catch it before then, but this is just kind of verifying I didn't plug something in my calculator wrong. So in this problem, there were actually two different triangles that worked for the given information. So we've seen a case when there was no triangle. We've seen a case when there were two triangles. The only other option is to have a single triangle that works. So let's look at a case where that happens. You guys all look so tired today. Didn't you sleep all day yesterday and recover?
I didn't get the chance. I had to watch a couple of games in the morning.
So triangle is totally optional. Draw it if it helps you. If it doesn't, you can skip that step. What do I do now? Find angle A. So I have all the information for B, so I'll use that. Put in your information and cross multiply. So did you get sine of angle A to equal 0.71894? So, do we have a triangle this time? Yes. We know, since it's positive, there are actually two, right? You could be in quadrant 1 or 2. Reference angle, how do you get it? Sine inverse so 45.967. I'm just going to go ahead and round that to 46 degrees. So in quadrant 1, angle A would be 46.0 degrees. How would you get it in the second quadrant? So 180 minus the 46, 134. Okay, so far so good. Now we have A and B, so we can easily get angle C by doing 180 minus each of these. So 180 minus 46 minus the 68.7. So in the first triangle, we get 65.3 degrees. And then in the second triangle, so if you do 180 minus 68.7 minus 134, what do you get? Is that possible? No. You could have caught it also a step sooner when you got angle A to be 134. Just look between side A and side B, which one's bigger? Side B is bigger, so that means angle B has to be bigger. So A had to be less than that. But if you didn't catch it there, you sure catch it when you get a negative angle. So what we know is this second triangle doesn't work. So there's only one correct answer. So then all that's left is to find the missing side. So I'm going to do B over sine B equals C over sine C. So side B was 25.4. Divided by the sine of 68.7 equals side C, which we don't know, divided by the sine of angle C, which we got to be 65.3. So if you multiply that over, you get 24.8 inches. So just one triangle works. that's everything. Let's go ahead and try a couple more to make sure we're okay with this. Why don't you guys try setting this one up? See how far you. So did you guys get sine A equal to 0.3184? Not possible. There is no triangle on this one. Alright. One more. Well, I don't know. Do we need another one? Do you want to do one more where we have both triangles? Or do you guys think you've got it? You've got it? Okay, so here is the plan. Track isn't gone tomorrow, are they?
Yeah.
They'll be here tomorrow. Okay. So I need to have you guys do MACC evals. So somebody remind me to say something about that in class tomorrow, if you haven't already done those. Then I'm going to go ahead and give you the homework, and you've got time to start right now. You will have class time tomorrow as well. So tomorrow you'll have some time to work on this. We'll do the MACC evals. If I have time, I might start the next section at the end, just get a few things written in our notes. We won't get to homework or anything with it. So, 304, 1, 7 through 27, every other odd, and 37.